but I do have
Sure.
one more question in terms
Yeah.
that speaks more to like the culture of athleticism, because you obviously
Hmm.
played at a high level. Um, I feel like like alcohol abuse is something that you oftentimes don't ever hear about until folks retire from their
Yeah.
sports,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We see it in professional football, we've seen it in professional basketball, more so on this on in men's sports than even in women's
Hmm.
sports. Um, what do you think that there is to that? Why is there so much stigma and silence around abuse of substances within the world of athletics when we talk so much about performance enhancing substances, but we don't talk about
Yeah.
performance, deduction substances that that are probably even more harming to the younger generations that we're trying to
Yeah.
protect. So I'm curious what your perspective is on that culture, and what do you think we need to be doing differently?
Yeah, I mean, I think it starts with the fact that, at least from my perspective, I can only speak to my experience, but me reaching for alcohol or substances was never about anything but coping. Like, I think so many athletes are coping with the pressure, the stress, the anxiety to perform. And also, it's probably like a little bit of a dichotomy there, right? Because as an athlete, like our body is our
Yep.
temple, but how many fitness things do you see, see people running a marathon and there's beer at the end and, it's, almost like every, pro athlete has like a liquor line. Like, I just think it's just part of it. And I think a big reason why it's so acceptable is because athletes do a great job of
Mm.
compartmentalizing and they're able to function. And especially if you get to the highest levels of sport, like, no one really cares what you're doing outside of it. They just want to make sure you can show up and play. So I think that is a part of like why it's so rampant and prevalent as far as like how we need to break into it, and try to like set a different trajectory. I mean, I can only say that I think it's addressing those things more than the drink. Like, again, for me, I've never had this approach of demonizing alcohol and thinking it's like this evil, horrible thing that everybody needs to not do. I think we need to be more curious as to why people are reaching for it, right? Gabor Mate said, if you encounter somebody with addiction or struggle with abuse of substances, you don't ask why the addiction, you ask why the
Yeah.
pain. And I think a lot of athletes are struggling with pain behind closed doors, but they also are having access to a lot of lifestyles that every average person wants to
Yeah.
have. And so I think a lot of times athletes' actual lived experiences are cast aside because they have money and
Yeah.
fame.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I do agree with you in terms of like looking at the pain. And I think that we've seen time and time again, even when it comes to athletes at the highest level who have massive platforms, they seem to societally only have a license to speak about certain things and to address
Yeah,
certain matters of subject. I mean, you look at everyone from, look at Naomi Osaka having to like pull out
yeah,
for mental health issues and being demonized for that, or look at LeBron James taking a stance on civil issues and being demonized for that.
yeah,
And it's interesting because if you look at the highest level of sports, most of those folks are people of color, right? And I don't think
yeah.
that we've been given the grace even at higher levels of society where we can have honest conversations about what's really plaguing us. And again, whether it's societally or individually, alcohol is and the abuse of it or any other substance is really just a symptom of something much larger, right?
Hmm.
So I think
Yeah.
that's a super poignant note. So thank you for that. I appreciate you guys listening to the Stacking Days podcast. I hope this episode added value to your recovery and wellness journey. Before we go our separate ways, let's connect on social. You can find us on TikTok and Instagram at Stacking Days or via the website www.stackingdays.com. By supporting the show, you can play a direct role in amplifying people of color in their pursuit of recovery. The easiest way to do that is to subscribe or hit the follow button. This way, you'll never miss an episode, all while playing an active part in creating the ecosystem where diverse voices and healing matter. This show is for the purpose of education and connection and is not a replacement for therapy or recovery care. For more information on the resources and support available, take a look at SAMHSA and some other resources shared in the description. Until we meet again, be well, one day at a time.